What it is, y'all, back again. Today's video is called The Whole Science of Creation. So I want to give a shout out to my favorite page on Instagram right now, which is called Spirit STEM. And we have a lot of similar interests dealing with these higher maths and, physics and shall we say fringe phenomena, right? They're all connected, right? So everyone knows about crop circles, right? So early on, I don't know what year it was, maybe 1999 or something like that, I got this idea that these were images, they were multi-dimensional images represented on a flat plane. And once I started to think that way, I started to realize more and more. But basically, see, I'm a very visual thinker and I like math and geometry, right? So when I was younger, my probably like 20s or 19 and 20 years old, I started drawing these patterns, and I later would come to find out that it was toroids, but more importantly an implosional vortex, like a toroidal implosional vortex. So what's a toroid? Well, it's an interesting term. I personally relate it to the idea of a torque, TRC, which is like a neck piece that the Celtics would wear, and a lot of different tribes and people. But so it's this ring, right? And personally, I think this relates to royalty and to they have these sacred mounds. And so the torque and the toroid. So the torque was a ring around the top of this hill, right, basically, and they would do their sacred ceremonies there, like weddings in particular. But there's all kind, and this is related to Tara, the goddess of Ireland, right, but also the Indo-Aryan Tara as well, and to the Ishtar, right? They're all connected. But basically, that fundamental word, torque, toroid, Tara, it's all kind of about the same thing. Star too is about that. But what I was trying to say was, when I was 19 or 20, I started doing these sketches over and over, and I kind of started off with like the Maltese cross and stuff like that, but eventually I realized what it really was. Like, it was a three-dimensional field. So I started sketching different images. Like, here's what I just did in black here. This is just like kind of one version of the image that I used to do. So let me see. It's hard to see what's showing in there. But basically a toroid, like here, I'll draw a more simple one. I'll draw like a Maltese cross. But you can see in a certain way, it's actually the same shape. And this pertains to the Great Pyramids and everything like that. It's just a really simple shape, right? Like, it's these, and so in basically printing, like block print making and stuff like that, they have all the fonts, right? The fonts have this thing called a serif, right? Which is this, it's actually showing you a three-dimensional vortex represented in two planes. So what it is a toroidal implosion field. So so to relate to this, think about magnets. Like, everyone's seen pictures of magnets with the little metal filings and how they form this field. It almost looks like a sideways figure 8 or an infinity sign, and so the best shapes relating to understanding that is basically ellipses and toroids. And a lot of people know how all the planetary orbits are elliptical, right? Even the galaxy structure is also elliptical, right? So if you represent this field, and so the other thing about it is it's a self-similarity field, right? So it's like shells, a nested shell, the nested reality. Like, here I drew a little doodle of this guy in a nested reality, like he's sitting inside, and it's a self-similar, like it has a cube on the interior, like it's just cubes nested, one inside the other. And I drew another little one over here, a series of nested cubes surrounded by small, it's a fractalized cubical array, basically. Some people can relate to that, a lot of people can't. Okay, think about the cross, perfect example. That's what the cross is too. It's an unfolded cube, right? And one of my favorite scientists, Walter Russell, and artists, he was a great draftsman and a great designer, and I love to look at his art. It's pretty amazing, but he goes far beyond just representational art like that. He has a lot of amazing theories, but nested reality is very important, and I think that's what these like crop circles, like whoever may have created them and stuff like that, that's what they're really trying to do. They're trying to initiate humanity into a higher level of reasoning and comprehension of the physical laws of the universe. And math has really always been the core structure of that, right? The disciples of Christ were called actually mathematikoi, right? They were called mathematicians. People don't know that because they're not very smart. But the whole Greek alphabet and all the letters and all those things, like I've seen other people have put this out before, but once I noticed that, I was blown away. Like, look at the phi, the capital, large scale phi in Greek. That's a toroid. That's a fusion reactor. Like, that's the same fusion reactor that, Lawrence Livermore and all these French labs and all these different people, that's what they're showing. All these crop circles and stuff, they're showing an implosive toroidal field that's self-similar. So it's like a nested reality, and it's a toroid. And that's how our magnetosphere of the earth works. And that's how all the individual particles and little ions that are floating inside our blood, like they're all this toroidal matrix, right? And one of the biggest people that I could really give credit to about this idea is Nassim, of course, and his Resonance Academy and all that stuff like that. And Dan Winter gets a close second. But I love physics and math, so I was always trying to follow this trail since I was a little ass kid. But basically, all these great physicists, to me, my favorite physicist is probably Niels Bohr, Max Planck. I actually consider Tesla to be a physicist, but actually I think Tesla was actually just getting information from older sources through his Vatican library connections in the Jesuit order and stuff like that. They had a lot of secrets. And but like I'm saying, okay, all these different secret orders, right? Like the Christian disciples, right? They're mathetes, right? They're disciples. They're counters in one way. But they also are, so if you think of Ma'at and the order and justice and structural integrity of the universe and its tendency to equilibrate and balance out, that's Ma'at, the divine goddess of order. So doing math is like the science of order. Some people know that, some people don't. At any rate, so all these sigils and symbols, right, and these architectural structures that they built were their attempts to encode and to teach and instruct mathematical principles, right? Like everyone knows about, anyone who has any sacred geometry exposure, about the Vesica Piscis, right? Well, then you get into the thing of how Christ's symbol, and the symbol of the early Christians was the fish, right? That's about math. It's about geometry. It's about the fact that they knew the actual sciences of reality, and that's why their whole story has been either erased or completely, basically adopted by the enemy. Like, that it's been completely co-opted. Like what modern people consider religions now, it's actually controlled by the enemy, and they're teaching you the opposite. What is it the opposite of? What's the original teachings? Math. Anyone who knows anything about the Torah and the Old Testament, it's a math code. Hello. Why do you think they have a book called Numbers? Hello. Is anyone, and they count all the verses and they count all the chapters because they're giving you a mathematical structure, right? 22, the number of letters in the sacred alphabet of the Hebrews, right? Think about it. 22, 66, right? But the problem is, okay, you have these other forces that are coming in and editing, right? They're redacting, right? They redacted the book of Esdras, and they redacted, Enoch 1, 2, and 3, Ethiopic Enoch, Syriac Enoch, right? Those are the most important books, all the ones they took out. And what's it about? Astrology, prophecy of time cycles, right? Astrology, how to observe the stars and the planets and the seasons through math, and to build an observatory. Okay, that's what the book of Enoch is about. When he takes him up, he's like, oh yeah, I'm taking you up into the heavens, and he gives him this mathematical design for an observatory. Hello. How do people not know that? That's what the actual religion is supposed to be about. It's about math and teaching math. Like, I could get all into that, how Yeshua is 888, right? And that there's all kinds of crazy properties. And there's the 888 in the digits of phi, which is supposedly this transcendental random, ratio sequence, but it has a repeating 888 at a point, right? So that's kind of interesting. And if you think about the phi, it's almost like an arrow hitting a target, right? It goes right to the center. That's also the symbol for the red dragon and mahjong and stuff like that. There's deep knowledge about all this stuff in every culture, but it's all been erased, right? And we've all been given a false teaching, and no one wants to do any math, higher math in particular, relating to what? The frontiers of all the new technology, okay? Quantum science, spin wave polarization, fusion reactors, like anti-gravity, time travel, like that, teleportation. That's just the beginning, okay? That stuff is all just the beginning of what I'm talking about, okay? But you can't get anywhere without the math. And you can be into visual math, and you can be into computational math and number theory. Like, there's all these different things, but the point I'm trying to get across is the fundamental structure of the matrix, the mother, right? The mother earth, right? It's all based on numbers and math and ratios. And time after time throughout the centuries, all these different groups have come out and known this and started teaching this, you know. But you know what they say, knowledge is power. A lot of people can't really process and handle power. But what I'm saying is, just like me, within each one of us, we have this unconscious mind that's privy to all this deep, it's, you know, it's privy to all the deeper secrets of reality itself. They know that, you know, they have the ability to get that information. It's like they're in the privy council, right? They're privy to all the information, right? They get shown it. But also it's not enough to just be shown it, right? Like, you have to kind of live it and demonstrate it, and you have to embody it and teach it and share it out with everybody. Because once you do that, it's like you're healing the world and you're putting the world back into its most natural configuration that's not artificially deformed, right? They want to deform us, right? But if you understand and learn about math, these higher teachings, right, you can start to see these three-dimensional manifolds, right? You start to see energy manifolds. You see your world in those terms. Like, inside of your body, that's what gives you health. That's what gives you intelligence. That's what gives you accurate, strong senses to see fine details in art, to hear fine details in music, to smell deep aromas through medical herbology and stuff like that. You're training all your senses to a higher level to get a higher energy density and to reform and rebuild the world on the template of the true science of creation, okay? You don't have some Jesuits trying to burn your libraries down, right, anymore. That's over with, okay? No more black orders and black robes and fucking invader spies coming around and trying to steal all the artifacts and dig into all the temple mounts and all the pyramids in Mesoamerica, right? You don't have those dudes there anymore now. We're getting rid of that. We're getting rid of the dark ages, and we're going to teach people the mathematical science of creation. What is it about? Just like Spirit Stem was telling me, it's about the logos, which is what? Word, sound, and order, right? It's the order, it's the logic of the universe, right? All the circuits are designed based on logic, right? They're logic circuits. What is logic? See, people mostly have a clouded view of what that is, right? But it's an ordering principle, and it's complicated. It's not always super simple, right? It's highly variable, and it's nested, right? And it's got subtlety to it, but nonetheless, there's the law of structure and order in the universe that defines the shape of all matter and says how crystals are formed, how geographical formations are going, and what's going on in the sky. It's all based on one single code, right? And humans are at a really monkey plus one. That's where we're at. We're not evolved at all, but we can be. And there's been extra dimensional forces, psychological forces, all these different evolutionary forces that are being brought to bear on us from all directions. And some people connect to it and some people don't. Some people learn to flower their own intuitive awareness of the divine, and they build it and they stretch it and they flex it every day. They're not wasting time shopping for fucking underwear on Amazon or some bullshit like that, okay? Developing the mind, not putting value externally on flimsy, temporary, toxic plastics or something that came out of the ground. Like, that's not what you're putting your focus on, okay? You're putting your focus on energy, the force of evolution, how to free humanity, how to build a healthy, happy society based on the order of the universe. It's better that way.